started my training actually right here when it was the Winnipeg Flying Club in 1984. And finished my private license, went to Selkirk College in the fall of 1984. I basically finished my, had my license signed off by the CFI here the very next day. I went out to the college there. So went to college from 84 to 85. 85 to 86, I ran out of money and failed the calculus course, so I basically got kicked out of there. Went back, transferred everything over after I stayed home for a year and I worked a couple of jobs to save some money, then transferred everything over and went to Fraser Valley College in Abbotsford for a year and graduated there in 87. My first job was actually at Skyward Aviation up in Thompson. In the summer of 88, I got hired there to work on the ramp and load airplanes for the summer, and then I was through the Cherokee for a couple of months, and then that winter I became a first officer on and did medevacs for a couple of years. I met my husband up there. He's an air traffic controller, and that was his first position, was in the town there. And so I was there for 2 years. I ended up getting married and got transferred to Kenora. He took a job in Kenora. I couldn't get a flying job in Kenora. I ended up going to Bearskin and was based in Thunder Bay. And I was only there for about 3 months, and I had about 2,000 hours, and I had been applying to Air Ontario. And out of the blue, they started hiring, and I was called, and I was hired there in July of 1990, and was there for 4 years, but I had my kids while I was there. I really only flew there for 2 years on the Dash 8 on the 100. And then in 1995, I heard rumors that Air Canada was hiring, so I had been sending in resumes, and I was just actually really lucky to get on there when I did. At that time, there was a huge problem, and it came down to seniority with the Air Ontario pilots, which actually eventually became Jazz, and the Air Canada pilots. It has to do with seniority, and there was a big grievance between our seniority list and their seniority list. And basically, there was a lot of pilots that turned the opportunity down to go to Air Canada because they didn't agree with how things all turned out. But I always knew I only wanted to be in this business to fly very large and very fast airplanes, and I knew I wasn't going to get that staying at Air Ontario. So I went to, in that sense, it's kind of nice to see where you could end up at the end of your career. So basically, that's how I got there. I really enjoyed the job at Air Canada. I was hired on the RJ, and then in 1996 I went to the Airbus. And I'm from Winnipeg. I'm from Manitoba. I was born and raised here. This is home for me. We are now only an Airbus base. I was promoted to the left seat in 2001, and I flew the 320 in the left seat for about 3 years. And then I chose to go back to the right seat because what's happening in Winnipeg is the base is just getting smaller and smaller. It's about managing. It's a lot about managing your whole flight. It's very routine. You go to a lot, especially on the Airbus, all the same places all the time, and it becomes, the majority of the time, really routine from A to B. And then the only factors that where things really change are weather and if you're having some operational limitations on the airplane, if something's broken or you're just operating sort of on a limited basis. So just as an example, this happened to us about a month ago. I don't know how many of you were around when we had a little mini snowstorm, and there was an RJ that went off the runway off of the end of 31 about a month ago. We were coming from Toronto, and we were holding just about 80 miles out of east of Winnipeg. And we were holding ground forks in our alternate. And we hold ground forks as our alternate all the time. That's one of our number one alternates for Winnipeg. So we were holding we were listening to the tower because the runway was in really bad shape, and we were just trying to get a feel for what the runway conditions were like. And we heard this particular operator had gone off the end of the runway, and there was only one runway that was serviceable. They hadn't been working on the other one. So they had decided that they were going to close the airport, which is not a huge deal. We would normally just go down to Grand Forks, get fuel,